What's up, everybody? I just got back from seeing The King's Man, and before I get into the review, I will express the elephant in the room. No, I am not wearing the suit that I am wearing in the thumbnail because I am too lazy to put the suit back on, and I don't feel like going through the whole wardrobe change to put the suit on. So that's why I'm, you know, in my street clothes that I wore to see the movie itself. Another thing, I'm going to talk about the review for The Kingsman first, and then afterwards, I'm going to talk about why I think this movie isn't really doing too well. Because as of this moment right now, the last time I saw the updates for the box office budget this movie was making was only like $10 million, which is it's not a lot. It's not doing too well. So I'll talk about that after I discuss the actual review of the movie itself. Um, so for starters, The King's Man is a good movie. I enjoyed it. I believe it has pacing issues at the beginning of it. It definitely has a more slower pace. It's a little bit different from the other Kingsman movies, where very loud and bombastic. This is very loud and bombastic as well, but it has a more somber tone because, as I saw from a little interview the director Matthew Vaughn had about The Kingsman, is he said that this third installment in the franchise is doing a commentary on war as a whole, which it does a pretty good job at that. I would like to say. Nothing too crazy, but gets the point across about like how bad war really is and how it affects people in like every facet of their lives and how it's kind of glorified and everything like that. And I did enjoy that. It was pretty well done, in my opinion. The acting in this movie is phenomenal from everyone in the movie. I do feel that some of the characters are a bit underdeveloped, which may lead to, you being like, oh, they're quirky, so I like them, but also I would like a little bit more from that. That does happen with, a lot of the characters in the movie. They don't get as much depth as Eggsy does in like the original uh, Kingsman movie, The Secret Service. So, that is a fault of the movie, but it's something that can be overlooked from the enjoyment of, as a whole. Um, Something that is different from the previous two installments that I think kind of hurt this movie is the fact that it takes place in the past, and because of that, is dealing with real world events. So the crisis that the Kingsmen, as they're forming themselves, are trying to stop in the Kingsman is World War I. They are trying to resolve the issues of World War I to end the war, which is really cool in concept. However, those confines that they had really bogged down the movie, which is the issue with the first act of the movie, in my opinion, is that it's like, hey, we're trying to do the Kingsman thing, make it interesting and like fun, and it has its comedic moments and the fantastic action and direction that these films all have, but then it's like, okay, we need to shape our story around the real world events. Now it's not 100% and everything. There are like liberties that they take with, historical figures and everything like that. However, it has to adhere to it, whereas the first Kingsman movie is completely original. The villain is original, his plan is original, everything that happens in it is completely original. I mean, as original as you can be for an adaptation of a comic book, but it's original as much as it can be, and then it tells its own story beyond that, and it's able to do whatever it wants. This, it's like, okay, we can do what we want, but it still has to be in line with what happens in the real world, and I feel like that restriction hurt the film in its storytelling, which is why I believe the first act is a bit boring, a little bit, just because like it's just you don't really connect with the characters that well. Because as I said, some of the characters aren't really developed very well. So the characters that you want to connect with to get you through the first act may not work for you. Because personally, I feel the character Conrad Rad Oxford, who was one of the main characters of the movie, he's just eggsy but boring. I know that's subjective, but I feel like his personality is very similar to Eggsy's. Just he's more boring because he doesn't have the same level of development or charisma that Eggsy has, and that's unfortunate. As I briefly mentioned, the action phenomenal. I think this is the best action out of the three Kingsman movies. Which, yeah, hot take. I'll say it's a hot take, but I think the Kingsman does have the best action between the three Kingsman films as of late. The direction is also fantastic. It has some really, really nice shots that I enjoyed a lot. And I could definitely see myself, like, how people rewatch the church fight from the first Kingsman movie, if you've seen it, that is. This, I could rewatch like so many fights, like the fight with Rasputin. Mm, cinema. That whole fight sequence is just so crazy. Like, I love it. It's just beautiful. Choreography is incredible. Sound design is great for the fights. Like, every hit they land really feels like an impact, even though they're moving fast and crazy and doing all of these like unique moves, and like, it's like a life or death thing. You really feel the danger from each impact. Like, as soon as like people hit with like swords and shoot guns, punch each other, you just like you feel that impact when they land, and it's just awesome. As opposed to like floaty combat that you see in like a lot of like, corny action films nowadays. Um, but yeah, overall, I did enjoy The Kingsman. It really picks up the longer the movie goes on, and it forms its own uh, identity in the franchise. They do seem to be planning to continue with these prequel movies. I kind of hope they take a break from that. Like, maybe it's every other movie or every two movies they do a prequel movie to The Kingsman. Uh, they do a sequel to The Kingsman, because I really want to get back to the story with Eggsy in the present. That's just me. Um, but yeah, that being said, was really good. If I had to give it a rating because of the first acts, like, hampered down and everything like that, I don't know, somewhere like three, maybe four, possibly three, somewhere between three or four. I guess 3.5 works. Yeah, it was about 3.5. It was pretty good. Maybe a four. I don't know. Conflicted between 3.5 and four. So somewhere around that range, But my opinion of the movie is more important than the actual rating. Ratings are very subjective, but my viewpoint on the movie is it's highly positive, so it's worth checking out, especially if you're a fan of the other Kingsman movies, even though this one is a little bit different in its execution because of the setting and everything that it's in. So now that the review portion is over, I would like to talk about why I think this movie isn't doing too hot in the box office. Um, this is just a really bad timing for this movie, because originally, from at least from what I saw, was exposed to from marketing and everything, The Kingsman was supposed to come out in on February 14th of 2020, and I didn't even know that the movie had gotten delayed until one of my friends had told me like a couple days before I was going to go see it, because I was talking to them like February 12th or something like that, and I'm like, man, I'm really hyped. I can't wait to go see The Kingsman on Friday. And then like it got delayed, and I was like, what? And it was like indefinitely delayed. Didn't have a release date from when I looked into it at the time. And then, obviously COVID happened last year. It is still going on today. So it was just delayed, and then it finally, it came out on December 22nd. And unfortunately, that was like the worst time. Like, if it released 2 weeks before, or if it released in the beginning of next year, I feel like this movie would be doing so much better. But it has too much competition to succeed right now, which is a shame, because The Kingsman, for starters, is a prequel, as I mentioned. It's a prequel to the entire Kingsman series. It's the story of how the Kingsman organization was formed. Problem with that is that all of the actors that people know and love from the previous two movies in the Kingsman franchise are not in this, so you don't have that same level of connection. Secondly, this movie does take a different tone than the other two Kingsman movies, so it is harder for people to get into it. Another reason that it's probably not doing too high in the box office is because of all the other movies that came out that people want to see more than The Kingsman. You have The Matrix Resurrections, which, people have been fans of The Matrix. It's like a cult classic trilogy since the 90s. Sing 2, so all of the little kids who can't see, these R-rated movies like The Matrix and The Kingsman, their parents are taking them to see Sing. And then most of all, that's like dominating the box office, almost making $1 billion, is Spider-Man No Way Home, which I still highly love that movie, but like that movie has dominated the movies. Like, every movie that's out right now is flopping because everyone is spending all of their money to go see Spider-Man. And then lastly, it's Christmas. Well, it was Christmas because I'm recording this video after Christmas. But The Kingsman released on December 22nd, which was 3 days before Christmas. Now, I went to go see a movie. I went to go see the first Sherlock Holmes movie by Guy Ritchie with Robert Downey Jr. on Christmas when it came out. There was no one in the theater. It was just me, my dad, and my grandmother when we went to go see it like all those years ago. There was like no one in the theater. So I can't say for like every theater experience around Christmas time, but most people stay at home with their families for Christmas. You know, if they have the friends and family, if they have those things to do. So a lot of people aren't really out on those holidays doing things. Most things are closed. So it's just like, why would you release this movie at this point in time? Like, most people aren't going to want to go out, so they're just at home, so you take those people out of the equation. Then you have like me, perfect example. I've been waiting for this movie for years because I'm a huge fan of the Kingsman franchise, the movies anyway, and I just was lazy and I stayed at home for like the past 4 days that I didn't have to go to work. So I didn't go out and see the movie. I had ample opportunity to, but like I just didn't feel like going out. And then today I finally was like, okay, you can go see it. So it's just like the holidays put a damper on people who want to go out because they just want to stay at home with their families and enjoy the time. Then all these other blockbusters that came out, then add in the fact that the actors that people attach to aren't in this movie and the tonal shift, like it has a lot that is just bogging it down, and this movie isn't doing that well, and it deserves to be really well because this is something that I'm afraid of with like Hollywood as a whole, is that like you have really good unique movies that are like either indie films or they're just like big budget movies that take their time, they make a well crafted movie, and then life happens, and like crap happens and then it just flops when it releases, because then, you know, we as the audience, we might like the movie, we might love the movie. There's some movies that have released have become cult classics after flopping in theaters because of bad marketing or whatever. So, oh, I did forget to mention that The Kingsman is terrible marketing. Like every time I go on YouTube or flip on the TV or like open up Twitter or whatever, I see an ad for The Matrix, Spider-Man, or Sing 2. I see nothing about The Kingsman. Like there's no advertisements whatsoever. I saw one advertisement, and that's what I mentioned earlier in my review about how I saw a behind the scenes thing about the director talking about the movie. That was it. That was the only thing I've seen for it in like the past 4 weeks. This movie is being marketed terribly, and I don't know why, because this is a really good movie. Like between all the movies that I mentioned, if I had to like rank them, like Spider-Man would still be at the top because I'm a comic book nerd and has a special place in my heart. But then The Kingsman definitely trumps The Matrix, and you know what? I'm not gonna say trumps Sing. I haven't seen it, but I can't imagine that I would want to rewatch Sing more than I want to rewatch The Kingsman. So, jeez, yeah, like it's just not doing very well. It's marketed terribly. It has all those other obstacles that I just mentioned, and it's just doing awful. Like it only made like 10 million, as I mentioned earlier, from the last time I saw the box office scores, and I really wish it was doing more because it deserves to be making more. This is a really good movie, and I don't want people in Hollywood thinking like, oh, okay, people just want generic action movies that no one cares about because those make money. No, nobody wants that. Nobody wants to see a crappy generic action movie that has no compelling story to tell, that has no heart. It's just good movies sometimes hit a rock. They hit a rock wall and they don't make the money because of XYZ reasons, so I'm really hoping that because The Kingsman is a part of a franchise that, some corporate fat cat, some producer or whatever doesn't like stick their grubby hands in the franchise and try to change things because this movie didn't do too well, or we don't get another The Kingsman, because the setup for the next one is interesting and I'm curious how they would take care of that. All in all, I really hope this movie does well. And, I'm just a lone guy out here trying to convince you guys to go check out The Kingsman. So that'll be the end of this video. If you liked it, obviously hit the like button, subscribe, turn on notifications, and, you'll catch me in the next review. So I'm the Innocent Villain, and remember, folks, you are innocent until proven villainous.